Hey there guys, PC Guy here with the news in tech and gaming for the week, and this week we do actually have some gaming news for the gaming part, because I usually say that but it ends up pretty much always being around tech. But let's start with the tech news as per usual and then develop with the gaming news, which are not that great for the most part. Several news outlets have reported earlier this week that an Intel i9-10990Xe has been leaked on some benchmarks and or screenshots. It's supposedly a 22-core 44-thread CPU with a 380 watt TDP. Yes, 380 watt, you heard that pretty correctly. Now this should be competing around the same level of the Threadrippers, the latest generation Threadrippers, that is from AMD. It is still completely unknown in terms of pricing how that's going to pan out. It will be on X299 platform, so that much we do know. Now for actual performance, it really will depend. People are talking about perhaps 5 GHz all cores. Kind of doubtful. I mean, I can see how that TDP might give that idea. However, you probably will need a pretty hefty chunk of cooling to cool down the 380 watt TDP processor, especially considering that is probably lowballing how much it actually sucks up out of your power supply. Again, it's not really confirmed, it's a leak or a screenshot, so take it with a grain of salt. However, I do see it possibly coming as a way to maybe gain back some of HEDT market that they are losing to AMD lately. Not sure how effective it will be. It needs to be reviewed, obviously, a lot of benchmarks, a lot of testing and comparison, and it needs to have a known price. So will it be good or not? Well, I guess we'll be able to see when some samples are actually out there. Next piece of news is actually something that makes me pretty happy, actually. It's something that I have talked about at length in some other videos, and something that every time the topic of RGB comes up, I do make a point to mention it, and this seems like a pretty great step in the right direction. Corsair and Asus are making a partnership, at least a collaboration of some sorts, and apparently you will be able to control Aura and Aura devices, be it fans, keyboards, etc., via iCue if you have the latest software installed. The specific post is on Guru3D. I didn't find anything on Asus or Corsair's official pages, although I might have overlooked. So in any case, you will need obviously an Asus motherboard with Aura compatible, so RGB headers, etc. You will need to install iCue on Aura, as well as a plugin for iCue to be able to control Aura via iCue. There are a few steps here for installation, like installing Aura but not actually running it, because you cannot run both at the same time, downloading plugin, yada yada, etc. There's a whole guide in here. Obviously this is not ideal, if I'm being honest. I would like to see just a straightforward plug-and, not necessarily plug and play, but you install the software, it works, you're done, no need for plugins and checking if Aura is running or not, and 2 separate programs installed and all that sort of stuff. Ideally you wouldn't have to go through that, but from where we are standing right now, or were just a couple days back, this is a massive step in the right direction of not being locked into a particular ecosystem. Ideally, we would see iCue expanding to control as well, also for example Mystic Lighting or RGB Fusion and all that sort of stuff, and skipping the extra steps that, let's face it, for you and me that are used to fiddling with PCs, installing software and troubleshooting stuff, we can easily follow steps like this. But for beginners, newcomers to the PC setup and that sort of thing, just a simple installation, everything works, done, would be preferred. And even for us, let's face it, it would be a lot handier and a lot less complicated and less bothersome to set up. Either way, I do look forward to how this will develop, and speaking as someone that has Asus software and have been eyeing out the HydroX lineup for quite a long time, this is something that definitely excites me quite a bit. The next piece draws some similarities in that it is kind of about different standards and connectors and ways to do things that companies compete with each other and try to lock people into their own ecosystem. Now Apple is kind of known for that, specifically in this case for their charging port. Apparently in Europe they are planning to legislate forcing every smartphone to have the same charger port. In this case it's supposed to be USB-C, so Apple is kind of fighting that because they have their own proprietary charging port, and obviously they are not happy with this. The idea is that it would reduce electronic waste by having every device using the same type of cable, and you would have less cables going to waste by no longer being necessary or such, and you can just use one cable for all of your devices if you so wish. The idea does seem very appealing, and I am mostly behind it. And the only thing is, like Apple is arguing, is that it kind of freezes innovation. Not so much, not like Apple's current cable is so innovative, and it's not really an issue for now or for a couple of years from now, but let's say in the future someone wants to develop faster charging technology or a faster port that allows for better data transfer rates, you name it, better functionality in basically. They will not be able to very easily implement it because they are forced by law to use USB-C, and if USB-C does not support all the functions that they are doing as extra, then we might be stuck with USB-C for longer and skipping out on good features that we otherwise would get if those people were free to implement their ports. Now, there might be caveats in the legislation that will be made, like for example, you can have USB-C but also your own port. That could be a possibility. I would have to look at it, at the actual bill, to be completely sure, but that's not even drafted yet, so that's not even a possibility. But yeah, with those caveats in place, I can see how this is a pretty great initiative, and it frees you up to be a lot more flexible with the cables that you have if you own several ecosystems. CES news keeps trickling in, and this time we're taking a look at the DDR5 4800 MHz. It's obviously DDR5 has been in development for quite a while, but this is the first time we've seen a kit. At least it's the first time I've shown you guys in this channel, and it is supposed to be in production in 2021. To be, let's be clear, to be in systems in 2021. But don't expect them to be in your just regular household systems. It's probably going to make its way first to data centers and the server platforms and such, as for example the Intel Xeon Sapphire Rapids. So yeah, in terms of actual household systems, it might take another year or two, so I wouldn't expect it before 2022 or so on our actual home desktops. Speaking on arriving at our desktops, apparently Zen's 3 4000 series and 600 series motherboards are expected in late 2020 and getting USB 4.0. Now this kind of ties in with the previous article. These in particular are said to be launching at CES 2021, as you can see in the article if you wish to read it, but it ties in with the other article in an interesting way. This series of motherboards and processors are still going to be using the AM4 socket, that much we know, but if those are going to launch in 2021 or late 2020, then we can expect Zen 4 to launch in 2022 most likely. So it is feasible that AMD will ditch the AM4 socket by then and replace it by, let's call it AM5. I'm not sure if that's going to be the name or not, but let's call it AM5. And those are most likely going to be arriving 2022 as well. So it is quite feasible that that new socket will have support for DDR5, or at the very least be already built in a way that will support DDR5 in the future without necessarily needing a socket change once again, which is something that AMD has earned a lot of good favor from builders, is keeping their sockets relevant for as long as possible. So if they do future-proof their next socket for DDR5, then you could again see another 4 or 5 generations perhaps of CPUs going into that socket without having to necessarily replace motherboards. So that's something that I really want to hear more about, but that's probably still another year or two away. Next, I wanted to talk about the rumor that has been running around everywhere about AFOX submitting filings at the EEC about the RX 5950 XT, 5950, etc, etc. I wouldn't read too much into that. Not saying that it's not coming, not saying that it's not going to be, people are talking about maybe over the summer or something. It could possibly be, we don't have exact concrete data, but these filings mean nothing. I mean, Sapphire has last year already filed the exact same names, almost a year ago. It's just a way for them to have the names already trademarked and ready to launch if the product comes to market, and if not, well, they don't lose much by submitting the filings, because, well, these can take a while to get approved and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I do believe Big Navi is coming probably sooner rather than later, because AMD stands to gain more if they launch it early than if they wait for NVIDIA to launch their products as well and then compete. So they probably will launch it as soon as they can, I would think. But it is probably going to be an RDNA 2 card, so I don't see why it would fall under the 5000 naming scheme instead of the 6000, but yeah, we'll see when it happens. Now we're getting to the gaming news, and it's not really looking great. I mean, it's not horrible news, at least not for the most part, some of them are, but we have been hit this week by a number of delays, some of them on actually very highly anticipated games. For starters, Cyberpunk, a game that has been very highly anticipated from CD Projekt Red, makers of the Witcher series for example, has been delayed from April all the way to September. They argue that they need the time to finish polishing the game, which is a welcome addition, because we do, from the experience we have with CD Projekt Red, when they are really doing their best at something, they make a pretty great job of it, and it's one of those companies that has not done much to earn our distrust so far. So this is welcome news, I guess, if it means we get a better game. It is slated to release now on September 17 with some features, like some multiplayer features, perhaps being only available on the next year, but we'll hear more about it when the time comes. This isn't the only delay of the week though, because Final Fantasy Remake has also been delayed for another month, and the Marvel Avengers game, which I'm personally not very excited about, has been delayed for also another 4 months from its predicted launch date. So yeah, it seems like gaming companies have been taking their time doing stuff lately. But the bad news for the gaming don't stop just there. World of Warcraft patch 8.3 has launched this week, and yeah, it's not pretty. The content amount is quite disappointing, the quality is a bit of a letdown in some areas, and the Q&A is a disaster. There's bugs everywhere, broken quests everywhere. I will make a few videos also on this patch from now on, because as you know, I usually play World of Warcraft and I use it to kind of give some content to the channel, even though I'd rather not have to. I'd rather have tech content always at hand, but that is not always the case. In any case, yeah, there is a lot to talk about there. I'll make a patch reaction video, but it does show that they have fired 800 people last year, and from those, a good chunk were from Q&A, or well, quality assurance, which is the ones that are supposed to be fixing bugs, that sort of thing. The next patch after that, 8.3.5, has been completely scrapped, and they're just focusing on next expansion. So we'll see how that pans out, but in the meantime it looks like it's going to be a very dry next more than half a year for World of Warcraft in the meantime. To finish this episode in a better light, Horizon Zero Dawn has been confirmed to be coming to the PC. It is not the first Sony exclusive game from the PlayStation to be featured on the PC. Other games in the past, like Death Stranding for example, that has launched on the PS4 in November, is going to be arriving on PC this year, and a few other games also have been released from the PS4, I apologize, to the PC, like for example Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human, although this is a different type of arrangement that Sony had with the studios. This does give me some hope of perhaps playing some exclusive games on the PC as well, like I've always wanted to play Bloodborne for example, Last of Us, that sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll see in the future, maybe Sony will be a bit more lenient with its exclusives, making PC ports. Last but not the least, if you have played PC games for a while, you must have heard of the Baldur's Gate name. It's one of the best RPGs out there. It's a gem really from back in the old days, and without really confirming anything or even giving any specific information, we have been treated by a little teaser from the developers. The teaser doesn't actually show any gameplay, just a few motion capture, music, you know, just work being done on something, and then they say something's brewing on the 27th of February this year. So we'll see, maybe there will be some Baldur's Gate announcement. We'll have to wait until then and see. in around a month from now. Now, this has been it from the week. I hope you guys have enjoyed it and heard some news that you weren't aware about and are excited for, hopefully. So I'll see you guys next week. Leave a like and a comment if you have enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing to the channel and checking out our other content if you'd like us to grow in the future and be able to provide more and better stuff for you guys. So I'll hopefully see you next time, and in the meantime, have fun.